welcome to another episode of our series where we're interviewing our speakers for Wisdomcon. That is September 24th to the 26th. And today I have with me Preston Dennett, who is an amazing investigator. I'm going to read a little bit about his bio and then we're going to jump right in. So Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He is a field investigator for the MUFON UFO Network, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 28 books and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. Several of his books have been Amazon UFO bestsellers. His articles have appeared in numerous magazines, including Fate, Atlantis Rising, MUFON UFO Journal, Nexus, Paranormal Magazine, UFO Magazine, Phenomena Magazine, Miss Mysteries Magazine, Ufologist, and others. His writing has been translated into several different languages, including German, French, Portuguese, Russian, and Icelandic. He has appeared on numerous radio and television programs, including Midnight in the Desert, The Art Bell, Coast to Coast, and also History Channel's Deep Sea UFOs and the UFO Hunters. His research has been presented in the LA Times and the LA Daily News, the Dallas Morning News, and other newspapers. He has taught classes on various paranormal subjects and lectures across the United States. He is currently residing in Southern California, and you can read more about his work at Preston Dennett, with 2 T's and 2 N's, .weebly.com. So without further ado, let me introduce our amazing guest, Preston. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Geraldine. My pleasure.
Thank you. Well, I've really just since the first time I met you at a conference, I was just loved with the work that you do and the detail, and the love that you put into your work is just so amazing. So, tell us a little bit about, why did you choose to discuss the healing aspect of UFOs? What drew you to that as something that we need to know about, that we need to learn about now?
Yeah, I came into this field as a complete skeptic. Honestly, I did not believe in UFOs. And finding out that they were real was a huge shock. This
Wow.
occurred because I found out that several family members I knew had encounters. Some very close up, not only family members, but friends, coworkers. And some of these were not simple sightings. I'm talking about landings, onboard experiences, face-to-face encounters with grays. And I thought,
Wow.
wow, yeah. I'm like, Earth is being invaded by aliens. No one's talking about this. What is
Wow.
going on? So it shocked me. It
Hmm.
blew apart my belief system to smithereens. I was, in a sense, devastated, scandalized. Had to really adjust my worldview. So I started doing UFO research and I was horrified. Thought, wow, this is not good. People are being taken on board UFOs against their will. They're being experimented on by bug-like ETs who seem to have little compassion. I was not happy. Uh, and I really dug in, started doing interviews, reading everything I could get my hands on, joined every UFO group, became a field investigator. And as my library expanded, as I started reading all the magazines and I'm doing first-hand investigations, I started having my own sightings. And my viewpoint began to shift a little bit. I'm like, maybe this isn't so bad as I initially thought. Because what I found out was that there was really a concerted campaign to make ETs look bad. There was a government cover-up. There was a lot of disinformation in the field. So this was all quite shocking to me. And I remember vividly when I was interviewing this lady, who I'll call Wendy, and she's describing her encounters, which started out very scary. This can be very scary initially for people. Having grays enter into your bedroom at night can be a real shock. But as I'm investigating what happens to people when they have encounters, I found a very strong spiritual component to all of it. And people who didn't have a strong fear reaction were often treated very differently. They weren't, you know, rendered paralyzed. They didn't have their memory wiped. They were given freedom of movement, given a tour of the ship. Seriously, I mean, they were shown the engine room. They were shown the control room. They were given messages, warnings. And I started to really look at this more objectively. I'm like, people aren't being tortured. They're not being hurt. ETs are not trying to scare people at all. Quite the opposite. They always say, you know, don't be afraid. We won't hurt you. Why are you so scared? And I was talking to Wendy, and she described her experiences and said, you know, they healed me. I'm like, wait, what? She says, yeah, I was diagnosed with a cyst in my fallopian tubes. It was, you know, causing her all kinds of pain, a lot of problems. She was pretty upset about it. It was fully diagnosed. And she said the ETs came the day before her scheduled operation to have this cyst removed. And she thought that was weird. She went to the doctor, and they did the pre-imaging before they do an actual operation. They will, you know, image you again. And the nurse comes in with her MRI things and says, well, this is weird. Your cyst is gone. You've had surgery. And Wendy's like, well, no. She kind of knew that what had happened. I mean, she had just been visited that evening, the evening prior. And but she didn't tell the doctor that. She said no. She denied it. And the lady's like, well, we know you have because there's fluid here that's present only after you've had surgery. And
Wow.
yeah, it was amazing. They pointed out this little laser scar in her stomach and said, what's that? And she played dumb. She's like, I don't know. And I thought, wow, you know, so here's a case with actual proof. And I thought this would make a good article. By this point, I had written some, I don't know, 20 or 30 articles. I was in this field for 10 years, by the way, before I wrote my first book.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And this was before that. So this is like mid 1990s. I got in this field in 1986. And I thought, well, let's write an article about this. Because I knew of another case where a police officer had been healed after being struck by a beam of light. It healed him of a flesh wound on his hand.
Wow.
And I thought of another case that was very well known in the field, investigated by Jacques Vallée. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He talked about a doctor in France who was healed of a wound on his foot, an axe wound, and partial paralysis. And I knew of another case in Peru where a customs official had been struck by a beam of light and healed of nearsightedness and rheumatism. And I knew of another case in Brazil where a young girl was cured of cancer. ETs came and did an operation right there in her home. I thought, wow, you know, let's see if we can find a few more cases and write a little article. And I started looking through all my books because what I found was, you know, even, you know, and I'm guilty of this, UFO healing cases I kind of thought of as unbelievable, on the fringe of the fringe. They often didn't get a lot of attention because they seemed so outlandish. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and if ETs are here to heal us, why are so many people dying? People who think ETs are here to heal us obviously have, this is my thinking, a psychopathological need to believe in a higher power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I did my best to be as objective as possible, and just started going through all the magazines and the books. By this time, I had quite a library. I kept finding cases. I'm like, wow, I just overlooked this one. Here's another. Here's another. I was subscribing to the UFO news clipping service, and I started going through those. Found a bunch more. And it took me just a few weeks, and I had found over 40 cases. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I can write an article. There's too many. Maybe I should consider a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I dug in real deep, and I found over 100 cases. And that ended up being my first book, UFO Healings. And that's what set me on the path towards investigating these healing cases, and really made me take a closer look at the ET agenda and why they're here. And is it bad news for us? No, it's not bad news. It's good news.
That's amazing, Preston. What incredible research and dedication you put into this. I mean, thank God that you did, to help us understand this other perspective that's very necessary. What why do you think they are here? What is the relationship between mankind and these beings, these extraterrestrials? Are they interdimensionals? How do you classify them? And what is the relationship that we have with them? What is it that they're doing?
Yeah, yeah, this is the $1 million question. And I'm very interested in this and have been looking at that for a long time. They do seem to be very interested in us as a species, and all things human, our planet, animals. I mean, they're collecting plants, they're collecting animals, they're collecting our genetic material. It's clear that I think we've got a pretty good handle on their agenda. Honestly, if you look at the work from other researchers, whether it's David Jacobs or John Mack or Bud Hopkins or Barbara Lamb or Yvonne Smith, we're getting the same stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clear that they are very interested in collecting genetic material, and particularly the grays here, which is mostly what I get. One of their main agendas is collecting genetic material to create what we would think of as hybrids, half human, half ET. And I know how that must sound to a skeptic, but this is kind of the stories we're stuck with. They are doing this. There's no doubt about it. I got a case very early on, and I continue to. And the ETs have said exactly why they're doing it. They said that they've lost the ability to reproduce, so they're having a lot of difficulty with it, that they've bred out their emotions, and that they are using our genetics to reinvigorate their race, and that essentially they are human. They used to look like us, but have suffered genetic damage through intervention and radiation and conflict and so forth. The stories on this vary a little bit, but they're pretty much all the same theme. So that is absolutely a major agenda. Another major agenda is to warn people of nuclear proliferation, of our warlike ways, of pollution. This is probably the single most common message people get. This is a major, major ET agenda, is to help us, to stop us from destroying our own planet and ourselves. They often take people to the engine room, as I mentioned. This is another agenda. They teach people how to build free energy motors. They
Mm-hmm.
seriously do. They will give you
Yeah.
detailed plans. And some people are moving forth with this. They are trying to get us to move off fossil fuels.
Mm.
So that's an agenda. Another major agenda is, as I mentioned, spiritual. And this is an absolute rule. People who are having onboard experiences, face-to-face contact regularly, are extremely psychic. And having this UFO experience elevates a person's psychic ability to an incredible degree. They are ETs are doing their best to wake us up psychically. And so we have a long list of people who are having contact who are experiencing a wide variety of paranormal events, everything from levitation to healing, 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 healing. I'll underline that and put that in bold because they are teaching people about Reiki and hands-on healing. This is a huge, huge agenda. They teach people about astral travel, about past life recall,
Mm-hmm.
clairvoyance, channeling. I started having all kinds of out-of-body experiences when I started having UFO sightings and contact to some degree myself. So that's a major agenda. And to answer the second part of your question, I am absolutely convinced. I mean, this is my assessment. I can't prove it, but it's my assessment that we're dealing with extraterrestrials,
Mm-hmm.
people like us, physical beings from other planets. And I think the evidence that we have collected, all of these researchers, uh, demonstrates this clearly. This is the theory I think which best fits the evidence, because we do have photographs and moving films. We have landing trace cases. We have many, many cases where people have implants in their bodies, physical implants, people who have been healed, people who have suffered what amounts to radiation sickness. And for that matter, we have the whole crash retrieval phenomena. There's outstanding, compelling evidence. It's mostly eyewitness testimony, but it is compelling that we have the saucers. We have these craft, we have the ET technology, we have the bodies. Our government and governments across the world know what this phenomena is. It is extraterrestrial. And as far as interdimensionality and time travel, yeah, they can do that. They can travel interdimensionally. So can we. And they're teaching us how to do it. We can go out of body. All things on Earth, all entities are interdimensional. So
Yeah.
I am not sure that it's helpful to just call them interdimensional beings, because I mean they are, but so are we.
Yes.
And yeah, they can time travel. I think they've really got that down to an understanding. But I think healing is really one of their main agendas. And the reason I say that is because every single major researcher out there has healing cases.
Mm-hmm.
John Mack, David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, Barbara Lamb, Yvonne Smith, Timothy Green Beckley, Edith Fiore. Edith Fiore was the first person with a PhD to investigate and write about UFOs. And fully half of her clients, 50%, reported healings.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
don't buy into the alien threat narrative. It's not true.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I mean, even in my own experience, as a contactee, I mean, I had activated psychic abilities from one day to the next, and it was so powerful that I couldn't even leave my house for 3 months after that. So, I mean, I can definitely attest to that as something that happens, and I hear it all the time in my support groups. They are experiencing these activations. Either they're already working spiritually and then have this opening up, this incredible experience, or it opens up the door for that. So, that being said, I mean, you know, on Earth, we have like this idea, we're kind of in this little hamster wheel seemingly, that we're in survival mode. We just have it all wrong as a civilization? Where should our focus be if we have these extraterrestrials coming here to teach us and educate us on these very important things, which is, eventually peace and how to live in a very compassionate way with our environment and each other? Where did we go wrong in society that we may not exactly have those things as priority? And do you think that this is an important part of the evolution of the world and, where we're headed?
Yeah, I love this question, and this leads back to our relationship with ETs, which I kind of skipped over. didn't
Uh-huh.
didn't really answer that,
Okay.
because I think our relationship to them is much closer than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have grays, and they seem different from us, but they're really not. They just look a little different. They're still humanoid. We have praying mantis ETs. We have completely human-looking ETs. They look human. And strange humanoids of all kinds. And they are out there in large numbers, but they're not like landing, on the White House lawn. They're not coming down and proving themselves in an absolutely conclusive way. They're a little bit laissez-faire. They do intervene, I think, on much deeper levels than we realize. I think contact is widespread.
Mm-hmm.
One in
Yeah.
40, maybe 1 in 50 people.
Yep.
So they are there. They are intervening. I think they kind of look upon us as their children. And I think there's good evidence that they put us here. If you go through ancient writings, I mean, you can see from petroglyphs and Egyptian
Right.
hieroglyphs and biblical writings and writings in ancient cultures and Native American tradition and cave paintings. And I mean, so we know they've been here for millennia. So at some point, it appears that things did go wrong on Earth. And as near as I can tell, this has been several hundred years ago, when, with the introduction of money, the loss of, the development of languages and the loss of our ability to telepathically communicate with each other.
Yeah,
The whole
absolutely.
Tower of Babel story,
Right.
where because it looks like if you study this stuff, we used to be a much more telepathic species, and we lost that. We've lost our way, and we've fallen under the control of a nefarious force on this planet. And I hate to say it, but I'm pointing towards our own governments. I am not sure who's behind this, but as near as I can tell, this is largely a human element that is responsible for the greed, the negativity, the hatred, the divisiveness. Uh, all the world's ills can be blamed on these one percenters. Uh, I've got some people who are on my naughty list. They know who they are, but it's the banking industry, it's the insurance industry, Monsanto. I mean, I hate to name names, but these guys
I think
know.
it's widely known by now. I think we're kind of, catching up to that now.
So
Yeah.
this is our problem, and I think
Yeah.
there is a way out of it. And the ETs know better than to just come down and take over, which they could. But we're not going to learn any lessons by being handed healing technology, by being told what to do, by being given the answers. It is up to us to solve our problems. This is the only way a species can evolve. We've been given free will, and I think they will intervene if it comes to, an existential crisis,
Mm-hmm.
because we do have evidence of that. I know of cases where they have intervened during wide-scale disasters. They warn
Yeah.
people, earthquakes.
Yeah.
They warn. There was a case where a volcano exploded in Colombia,
Mm-hmm.
and I talked to a contactee who was there, and they scooped up hundreds, up to 1,000 or thousands of people, and saved them from the Nevado del Ruiz eruption in Colombia in
Wow.
1984.
That's incredible.
And yeah, I did a whole study of this. People rescued by aliens. They will do this over and over again and continue to do
Mm-hmm.
this. This is more of the reasons why I'm very encouraged about these visitors to our planet. But ultimately, yeah, we have to solve our own problems. They're really doing their best to wake us up psychically, and that's key. That's what we can do. As
Yes.
an individual, I encourage people to meditate, to reach out to the ETs, to do CE5 work, to garden, to become self sufficient. Do not look to the lying governments for answers, because they will not give them. They have a long, long history of lying and suppressing people. They're not our friends. It's really unfortunate that I have to say this, but the evidence speaks for itself. It's up to humanity, the public at large, which is the most powerful force on this planet, to really move things along in the right direction. And we can do it.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. That's amazing, Preston. And you're going to be presenting on the healing power of UFOs. So, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're going to be talking about specifically?
Yeah, oh, I'm so excited because I do have, well, I just put out, my first book was The Healing Power of UFOs,
Uh huh.
or rather, UFO Healings. And I kept getting asked to speak on it. And I've gone on TV about this. And,
Oh my gosh.
and
That's amazing.
so many people have written to me. It used to be letters, now it's emails. And literally, I'm not kidding, every time I speak on this, someone will come up to me, whether it's on the radio or at a convention, said, this happened to me. So it was just recently I put out another book, The Healing Power of UFOs, which has 300 cases.
Wow.
And I have built, I think, an absolutely conclusive case that healing is one of the major ET agendas. And so I'll be presenting the evidence for that, some of the most compelling cases. And I mean, because there are 300, I mean, it would take me
Yeah.
2 weeks to really go through every case.
Wow.
So I'm going to present the best of the best, some of the more interesting and compelling cases, and I think try to convince people that uh, about the truth, that this is really what ETs are all about, healing us.
That's amazing, Preston. I cannot wait for your presentation. I always love to hear you speak. Great. Well, if people want to connect with you, if they want to read about your work and buy your books, most importantly, where can they reach out to you?
Oh, I'm all over social media. I do have a website that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
prestondennett.weebly.com. You can certainly contact me through my website or by email, prestonufo@gmail.com. It's pretty easy to remember. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. My books are available on Amazon. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm trying to put up my research there. I think this is a very important subject, and I can't thank you enough, Geraldine, for um, letting me
Thank
be a part of this wisdom conference.
My gosh,
Um,
thank you. Thank you so much. And your YouTube channel, if you want to, is it just Preston Dennett? Do they just look you up by your name?
yeah, that should take you there.
Okay.
Yep.
So I will put all the links down below so you guys can connect. Please subscribe and check out Preston because, oh, it's this way. So that you can connect with him because he is incredible, really, truly amazing and dedicated to his work and valuable information that we need to know now because I think Preston, and I'd love your feedback on this. I think we're coming to a point where we're going into. I think we're merging. I think we're merging more and more. I think we're going to hear more about ET contact now, moving into the future, and the opportunity for us to activate not just our intuitive abilities, our spiritual, aspect of ourselves. We're coming to a point where we need to head in that direction collectively to help us kind of rebalance the chaos that's occurring on Earth. So it's very timely, what you're sharing with us here. So thank you so much, Preston. And we will see you September 24th to the 26th at the Wisdom Con. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.